1, 2, 3, 4.
Now I'm all up in my bag, flowing to secure the bag. I feel like I'm the fucking greatest. Ain't changed from the last go. New shit, now I'm right back on your ass. So I know some bitches wish they never let my ass go, and I just wish I never
gave up on the saxophone. What up, y'all? It's Babylon 5 Podcast. It's your boy, Jermaine Event. How are you guys doing? This is episode 129. Calling this bad boy Monster. You're a monster. Calling this bad boy Monster. Because we're going to talk about some monsters in here. I feel like we talk about some monsters, some beasts, every week on this podcast. It's the whole point of this podcast. It's Babylon 5 Podcast. We talk about combat sports and everyday life. Welcome to the Babylon 5 Podcast. If you guys want to follow this podcast, before I get to that, actually, let me just give you guys a brief little rundown. We're going to talk about here, I just watched the brief docuseries, We Need to Talk About Cosby. I thought that was very interesting, to say the least. Give you my opinions on that docuseries. We're going to talk about Joe Rogan here. We're going to talk about Mr. Joe Rogan here for just a little bit. Just a brief moment. We're going to touch on UFC Vegas 47, headlined by Jack Hermanson versus Shawn Strickland. Talk about some fights on that card. And we are going to talk about next week's card, UFC Vegas 271, headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 2. The rematch, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're talking about this week. And if you guys would like to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon5Pod. You can follow my personal account at My Name's Jermaine. You can email this podcast at Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. Wherever you guys are listening to this podcast, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit that share. Let everybody know you love the Babylon 5 podcast. I appreciate you guys so much for that. If you guys are on Twitch, go ahead and follow me at twitch.tv/Babylon5. Go ahead and cop some merchandise. Go to teespring.com/stores/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, don't just be my Negro, be my patron. Be my patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod. You can be my patron for just $1 right now. I know you was like, nigga, didn't you say putting up the tears? Yeah, I said a lot of things. All right? I said a lot of things. All right? And I do them. But I don't know. I was going to do this one thing at the time. I was pretty ambitious about it, and I still plan to do it, actually. But not right now. I'm just focused on other things. I think the opportunity to do that, like, I stumbled upon it, like, at that time, and I got real gung-ho about it. But, like, now isn't the time for that. It's not the time for that. I'm focused on other things that I want to do, and things that I'm going to do first. I got a lot of things I'm working on, so that's why I was just like, yo, let me just get this shit ready to go. Let me just do some things that I said I'm gonna do. Them things. Let me just do those things. So, like, the fucking Patreon will go up eventually. If it goes up, you're gonna be like, oh shit, it's happening. The drops are coming. Here comes the content. Here comes the game, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen, here comes the content. You guys will be like, God damn, this nigga's everywhere. This nigga's everywhere. God damn it. That's what y'all niggas gonna be saying by the end of my shit. That's what these niggas gonna be saying. But Yeah, so that's when the price is going up. Like right before the shit started to pop. So, because that's what I'm saying. I was gonna raise the price because there's certain things I was about to jump on, and I was like, nigga, I could do that with everything that I'm doing. Why don't I wait until I have everything, just like ready to go? So like, yeah, some shit's about to go down. I just was like, why don't I make everything dope real quick, so we can, hit them from all angles. You know what I'm saying? Let's get them from every fucking angle. But yeah, speaking of first little topic here, that's a terrible segue. We need to talk about Cosby. You know, I instantly, when I saw it, I was like, fuck, I'm watching that. I'm watching the fuck out of that. When I saw that, I knew immediately that I'm watching the fuck out of that. It was only 4 episodes. They're like hour-long episodes. I feel like they could have been 4 hours each. 4 4-hour-long episodes. And I would have watched every minute of it. That shit was incredible. Shout out to W. Kamau Bell. It was incredible. I learned so much from that fucking documentary. I was disgusted. They showed, Bill Cosby, when he was younger, he was in a TV show called I Spy. And while that show was on at the same time, there was this famous show in America called Amos and Andy. Where there's these two fucking, like, man, I want to say, like, elderly black men who were just, they set black people back about 400 years, my nigga. About 400 years. Let's put it like that. It was so hard to watch. And they were showing all kinds of images of what was going on. But while Bill Cosby was, like, on TV as a spy and showing that black people can be smart, can have money, can do things, at the same time you flip the channel and see Amos and Andy, like, fucking, they were showing a clip. Now, I don't even want to talk about it because it's just gross. That show is gross. I didn't even really know that existed. I feel like I remember certain older white dudes, people's dads, mentioning that show to me, the only black guy around, only black kid around. I remember them niggas mentioning Amos and Andy. Because that's probably what they thought about black people. That fucking disgusting ass Amos and Andy show. Man, I felt like I just, like, was learning so much. I didn't even know Dick Gregory was a comedian. Rest in peace, Dick Gregory. I just knew he was an activist. I knew him as an activist. And, like, they're showing how, like, Bill Cosby followed Dick Gregory and wanted to, like, he called himself the Philadelphia Dick Gregory back in those days. He wanted to be like Dick Gregory. And I'm like, Dick Gregory? Like, what the fuck you mean, Dick Gregory? Like, Dick Gregory was the first comedian in America to break that color line. Like, to play, like, white clubs, essentially. Play for white audiences back in those days when that was just, like, a no-no. Like, Dick Gregory broke those lines. I didn't know this nigga was a comedian. I did not know this nigga was a comedian. I just knew he was an activist. I'm sitting here like, whoa, that's fucking Dick Gregory, my nigga. Telling great jokes. He was hilarious in the interviews I've seen him and all the videos I've seen of him. He's hilarious. But I thought he was just a black guy. I thought he was the older black guy. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know he was the first comedian to break this color line, break that color line. He was trailblazing. Shout out, man, rest in peace to Dick Gregory. I didn't know who Dick Gregory was. I was learning so much from this documentary, man. And at the same time, I've definitely come to the conclusion that man is disgusting. Bill Cosby is a fucking monster. He's a fucking monster. It's crazy. It's insane, the parallels. It's like identical stories from like the Lex Allen dude here in Milwaukee. When I was talking about the stories of him drugging all these men around town, it's basically identical stories in this Bill Cosby. These women in the documentary recount these stories. They have videos of just not all 60-some, but a lot of them. It's crazy. It's crazy. Bill Cosby is he's just a trash individual. And it's crazy that at the same time, like, I don't know if you guys have seen the Dave Chappelle stand-up, but as I'm watching this whole thing, I come to the conclusion, it's like, dude, did they, like, model this documentary off of the fucking Dave Chappelle joke? Because Dave Chappelle's, like, joke, he talk about the good, and then there's the bad, and it's like, he saves, but he rapes. So that's what it was in this documentary. Be like, look at all this crazy shit. There were no black stuntmen before Bill Cosby fought for it. They would paint a white dude black for a stuntman because they refused to hire black people, black actors, black stunt actors. Bill Cosby was like the first like black TV star, like in a drama. He wasn't the first black TV star because, as I'm saying, you could flip the channel and another very popular show was this disgusting Amos and Andy. Just disgusting. Oh, it's so disgusting. But yeah, he fought for that, and from that point they started hiring black stuntmen. Just the video, this woman was talking about it. She was like, yeah, it was James Bond. It was one of the James Bond movies, and like it's like a black woman that was like the love interest. And she was showing how, like, if you look at it in the stunts, it's just a white dude they put in a white dress. And they painted his hands black. It was weird. It was really weird. And that's just because they refused to hire a black stunt actor. I didn't know any of this shit. I think Cosby gave like $20 million to some college. I'm not sure I forget which college it was. It was some HBCU. All right. He was out here doing shit. And at the same time, drugging half America. This nigga has rape accusations. Just legit. I'll fucking A, dude. He's got rape accusations since in the 60s, since before my mom was born. You know what I'm saying? And I found out about all this shit when I was like fucking 25. You know what I'm saying? That's when that shit came to light. About like 7 years ago. Are you kidding me? This nigga's been doing this shit since before my mom was born. I didn't even realize how much this nigga was ingrained. They were saying how, like, while he was doing this show, I Spy, that was like a #1 show, he was dropping comedy albums, winning Grammys. He was like spokesperson for Jell-O, spokesperson for Coca-Cola, like spokesperson for like almost everything. They said you just like you could never turn on the TV and not see Bill Cosby at some point. He was just like always on TV, selling something. He was in all kinds of movies that they said flopped. He did a movie where he was like, he played the devil. And it's weird because, like, I mean, had that movie taken off, if people thought that was cool, You know, that would have been probably the standard of what the devil sounds like. The Jello pudding pop. But as I'm me in 2022, knowing what I know about Cosby, and this Jello pudding eating ass nigga, and I'm listening to the devil speaking like this, I was like, that's fucking goofy as shit right there. And there's no wonder nobody fucking wanted to see that movie. That shit looks goofy, my nigga. Bill Cosby is the devil. I mean, he turned out to be. You know what I'm saying? That is what the devil sounds like. This nigga's gross. All right? This nigga's gross. Turns out this nigga was the devil the whole time. He's been talking about drugging women. His desire to drug women pretty much his whole life. He had it in his stand-up in the 70s. Then 20 years later, 1991, he had an interview with Larry King, and Larry King, them niggas is too fucking buddy and just gleeful when they're talking about drugging women. And like Bill is like, and what did they say? And what did they say? Larry King's like, and then boom, she's yours. I'm like, what the fuck, Larry? Larry King was just too into that story. He knew everything. You know what I'm saying? Larry King sounded very familiar with the procedures. He didn't need to hear that from Bill Cosby. He knew the whole thing, and it wasn't Larry King wasn't oh, goddamn, Bill. That wasn't the case. They were fucking laughing. You know what I'm saying? Larry King and Bill Cosby were fucking laughing in 1991 about drugging women while Bill Cosby was promoting his book called Childhood, where in that, he was talking about his childhood, where in that book, he repeatedly talks about getting Spanish fly and he talks about how he put Spanish fly in this girl's Dr. Pepper. He talks about drugging women in the book. Like, it's always been out there. You know what I'm saying? It's always been out there. It's funny, when it came out, you know, when Hannibal Buress did that stand-up, I thought he was just being goofy, as I said. And then as everything blew up, all the comedians, they're like, yeah, I knew for years. Like, well, of course we heard this. Like, just nobody else knew about it. And it's like, fuck, that's crazy. And that's the whole point of the joke is from Hannibal Buress is like, if you Google Bill Cosby rape, that shit's got more hits than Hannibal Buress. At the time, that shit blew Hannibal Buress up after that, though. I don't think it's this. But but at the time, that was like a fact. And that's how niggas really fucking learned that Bill Cosby was this disgusting person, man. You got fucking the niggas from the Cosby Show that dated the daughters. I can't remember the dark-skinned nigga name. I know Elvin married Sandra. And the fucking Colonel nigga, the nigga that was in the military that was married to Lisa Bonet's character. Denise, I believe. The one that was married to Denise. And that's what brought in, he had the daughter who was Raven Simone, Olivia. Like, that guy, he's on the documentary. He's talking about how they didn't even give them niggas dressing rooms. And said that, like, they had to, if they were on the show at the same time, he and Elvin had to fucking, like, share a room. And they'd, like, just throw him in a closet. They showed up one day and they just put him in a closet. Nigga. Meanwhile, Cosby would have, like, sometimes they were saying, like, there was a modeling studio down the street, and they would provide, like, 20 ladies to come sit in the audience. And they were saying how, like, then they would just, like, people would just, like, watch as this fucking, like, group of 20 would just line up and then walk into Cosby's dressing room, and then they locked the door. They said usually, like, Cosby had an open door policy for his locker room, except for that time. Except for, like, at that time where he was mentoring these 20 models. It's pretty wild shit that was out in the open. One of the victims, was talking about how she was on the set and somebody came to her and was like, yo, we want you, like, Mr. Cosby wants you to come to his dressing room. And she was like, no, I don't want to go to his dressing room. And the person, like, grabbed her, was like, no, come, you're coming to his dressing room. And she said all the people on the set, all the other actors just, like, kind of looked away. They just kind of looked away as if this shit always happens. And, yeah, this nigga fucking... I don't know if he did assault her or... I think he did assault this woman. Yeah, he did drug and assault this woman eventually. So, yeah. But then he still put these, he would like fucking drug and rape these women, and then to keep them quiet, just give them a role on the Cosby Show. These people who were playing, I've seen these roles, I've seen these characters. And these women are coming up here explaining the story of basically how he gave them the role on the Cosby Show as hush money for his fucking assaults. It's fucking crazy. Oh, and I mentioned those women because when I mentioned Elvin and them, they wouldn't get locker rooms, but those women would get their own locker rooms. They had their own private locker rooms, but not niggas who were like actual characters on the show. They were not given locker rooms. But anytime these women came, these women who come forward who play these like one episode roles would get their own private like dressing room. And Cosby would just either just show up to their dressing room or demand or have them brought. They said some handler just came and brought her to this nigga's room. Meanwhile, she's saying shit like, yo, I don't want to go. And they just fucking take her. Shit's crazy, my nigga. Crazy. I think if you guys, man, if you have not heard about this documentary, we need to talk about Cosby, man. Y'all need to fucking watch this shit, man. It's crazy. These testimonies are fucking so powerful. He's gross, man. He's just fucking gross. But it's too powerful. They perfectly touch on how so many people don't want to, like, let go of who they thought he was and how what that represented made them feel. You know what I'm saying? I remember when I first heard, as I said, I assumed Hannibal was just being goofy. I assumed. Because he was like, of course that's not true about Bill Cosby. And now I see that, like, fuck. I don't know this person at all. And just because I watch reruns of the Huxtables, of, the Cosby Show, about the family with the last name the Huxtables, not the Cosbys. But that's interesting, that's part of the, I feel like that's part of the manipulation. You call it the Cosby Show, but there's no Cosbys in the show. But you get the opinion, but the show is about Bill Cosby. But he's not playing Bill Cosby, he's playing Dr. Huxtable. That's the person we thought we knew. We don't know shit about Bill Cosby, obviously. Because when people finally tell you shit about Bill Cosby, and you're like, nah, that's not Bill Cosby. How do you know? How do you know that's not Bill Cosby? You don't know Bill Cosby. The best you know is right now these people who have had these experiences with Bill Cosby and are telling you who they are. You know how many people who I've heard who's like, yo, I worked like over here in Chicago in the 90s in the 90s when Jordan was doing this and he was a fucking asshole, all this shit. Like, you hear these stories about, you know what I'm saying? You hear these stories. And turns out, oh shit, that dude is this asshole. Be drinking all the time, gambling, smoking weed all the time, obnoxious. Like, he's Jordan, egotistical. everybody on the court pretty much has the same shit to say about him as fans who just walk up on him, or people who worked at a valet service. All these people who have these stories. Chameleonaire. You know what I'm saying? All these people who have these stories. That should be where you get your fucking... If I only took the opinion of how Jordan presented himself in a Hanes commercial, you know what I'm saying? That'd be fucking silly. So we're going to take the opinion of how Bill Cosby presents himself in a Jell-O pudding commercial or in a fucking fictional fucking TV show. This isn't a documentary on his family. This is a fictional fucking TV family in his TV show. And he brainwashed us into thinking like, yep, nothing more to see here. We gotta just understand that we don't fucking know shit about that guy. Well, we didn't know shit about that guy, and now we know some shit about that guy. And he's not so likable after all. That's what you have to understand. And like, what's just a segue away from Cosby, right on into this Joe Rogan thing, as I touched on last week about the whole Spotify situation. I've seen a lot of fucking ass clowns, fucking idiots, fucking morons, just like posting shit like, I stand with Rogan. He's not this. He's not that. Nigga, who are you to make these claims about some stranger you've never fucking met because you like how they choose to present themselves to you on their fucking podcast or whatever the fuck it is that you choose to view that person? And yet, when you get hit with some fucking real fucking proof of who that person is, you're like, nah, it's taken out of context. No, nigga, that's the proof right there. That's not like, I'm not saying who a nigga like Joe Rogan is or isn't. I don't really give a fuck, actually. I feel like I don't fuck with Joe Rogan like that. I've just seen too much to continue. I was like, fuck that nigga even before I started. People were like showing me like the older clips. I had just grown out of my fandom of Joe Rogan. You know what I'm saying? I had grown out of that a while ago. And then I was just like annoyed. I was just like, fuck this dude. You know what I'm saying? But like, but for me to be that way, it's because I felt like when I was watching it, as I said to you, I was picking and choosing which episodes I watched. And as I was watching it, I felt like I knew this person. I had my opinion of who this person was and the type of shit this nigga would fuck with. But then when I see this other shit, I'm like, fuck. Oh yeah, I don't know anything about this person at all. Other than this nigga like MMA, and I like MMA, and the nigga be talking about it. Otherwise, I don't know shit about this nigga as a person. And I shouldn't just sit here and try to pretend that he's not. Like, that's my thing. Like, why is these niggas saying, like, nope, I've never met him before? They're not saying I've never met him before, but they should say that. I've never met this person before, never had a conversation before with him, but I don't think he's this, based off of absolutely nothing. And it's like, dude, you don't have to fucking weigh in like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to say this fucking idiotic, like, I don't think this is that. I don't think this is that. Because, like, nigga, just see what you're seeing. See what's being said. See the proof of who this nigga is right there. You don't need to fucking lie to yourself. All right? I'm not saying what the nigga is or isn't. I'm just saying the shit is what it is, my nigga. Even if you lie to yourself and say, oh, I don't think that's what that is. Even if you lie to yourself, if it's like fucking, that fucking, world, what's that shit called? Westworld. Where they look at some shit that ain't a part of their world and it's like, it looks like nothing to me. That's how these niggas is doing. They just lying to themselves. Like, oh shit, that ain't that. It looks like nothing to me. I seen a video where Joe Rogan said, they asked him about if a person was mixed with black and white, and he was like, oh, you'd have the best of both worlds, a black body and a white person's mind. And he's like, just to clarify, I'm not saying that a white mind is better. I'm just saying they're two different minds. Like, nigga, what the fuck are you talking about? I said that, some nigga tried to respond to me on Instagram and was like, the nigga was like, so it's okay for people like, well, first he said, it's crazy how you can make fun of a black person, or you can make fun of a white person and nobody says anything, but the second you make fun of a black person, and I was like, what is he talking about? Who made fun of either a white or a black person? I was like, where is he pulling that from? Then he was like, why is it okay for Hulk Hogan, who Hulk Hogan got recorded saying, like, about Brooke Hogan, she was dating a black dude, and Hulk Hogan was like, I wish she would at least, like, date one of those basketball playing niggas so we could make money off of it. Like, nigga, when was that okay? I was like, these niggas is pulling fucking the craziest examples out of nowhere because they feel like they need to defend an absolute stranger, someone they've never fucking met. And the only fucking semblance of who they really are is the times you catch who they really are. Don't fucking lie to yourself when you see who they really are. Just take who they really are for who they really are, man. Because, like, Joe may not be your fucking opinion of him that you've crafted. He might be a little... I'm not saying he is this or that. I'm saying that opinion, the opinions that were expressed, and you can see a lot of it, he's got some wild-ass opinions. He's getting boycotted. Not for these things. Not for the things that I'm saying are gross right now. He's getting boycotted for, like, weather or climate change. That was the straw right there or some shit. It was like climate change and vaccines. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't think niggas batted an eye. They didn't bat a fucking eye at all the fucking things where this nigga was just being kind of gross. Not even kind of gross, pretty gross. You know, he was pretty gross. So, they didn't bat an eye for that shit. Wasn't their concern. It wasn't their concern. If I need to give you guys any example of how a celebrity cannot be the idea that you have of them, or even the personas they've presented to you, just go ahead and watch We Need to Talk About Cosby. Because it's... I'm not in any way saying that Joe Rogan is the same as Bill Cosby. I'm saying, like, you never know a nigga until you know a nigga. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, Playboy? So UFC Vegas 47, headlined by Jack Hermanson versus Shawn Strickland. I said last week, so when I picked on Saturday, I did pick Shawn Strickland to win this fight. But last week, I said about this fight that I felt like they were even on the feet. Nigga, please. And then leading up to the fight, a few days before the fight, I saw Luke Thomas say, maybe the day before the fight, Luke Thomas said the stat that Shawn Strickland has like the highest takedown defense at middleweight. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize no one can really take this man down. I was saying if it goes to the ground, then I'm giving it to Jack Hermanson. So I kind of thought Hermanson would take it. But then when I saw that, like, he most likely wasn't going to take this man down, I was like, oh, it's going to be a fight. All right. It's going to be just a stand-up fight. And Shawn Strickland went to fucking work on that man. Just fucked him up with the jab. Just kept fucking him up. He just dominated him for 5 straight rounds. Should have been a unanimous decision, but for whatever reason, the judge Sal D'Amato, who sometimes has pretty questionable scoring, scored the fight for Jack Hermansson somehow. I don't see what rounds he gave to Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson got beat the fuck up. He got dropped in the second round. Like, I don't know what rounds would have gone. Even Michael Bisping after the fight was like, yo, I do not agree with that judge's scorecard. Like, don't you feel like it should be unanimous? Like, when he was asking Shawn Strickland. Because, like, dude, that made no sense. Like, what rounds did you give? Like, before, like, I think at the start of the 5th round, they were just talking about, like, how Shawn Strickland, like, is most likely in line for a title shot, but, like, because he didn't have enough flair in this fight, like, it's like, dude, this whole round is here. But he was dominating fucking Jack Hermansson from pillar to post. He dominated Hermansson. So, that judge was crazy. Should have been unanimous, but whatever. He's got the win. I think they get the same amount of money, no matter the route of victory. So, shout out to Shawn Strickland. He was a real good fight. He looked reserved. I think I didn't watch post-fight interviews, but I think I saw a headline where he was saying he felt like he let the moment get to him. But I felt like that was the best Shawn Strickland I've seen right there. That calm Strickland. Just, he didn't have any really trash talk until, like, the last few seconds. Then he started saying, like, fucking pussy, come on. Like, yeah, but, like, that was probably the best Shawn Strickland I've seen, man. He was real good. I would like to see Shawn Strickland take on Marvin Vettori next. I think that would be a pretty good fight. You got Jack Hermansson talking about he wants to fight Khamzat Chimaev. Nigga, you just lost. All right? Khamzat is about to beat the number 2 guy. You're going to have to work your way up to Khamzat, nigga. Khamzat's fighting Gilbert Burns at UFC 273 in April 9th. So, good luck, Hermansson, in trying to fight Khamzat Chimaev, because he's about to beat the number 2 guy. All right? Khamzat was bigger than Hermansson, who just fought at 185. And he's about to fight Gilbert Burns, who's an undersized welterweight that used to fight at 155. Used to make 155. I don't see Khamzat making 155. I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's possible. I see Khamzat possibly winning fights at light heavyweight. I see that as a possibility. I see it's not necessary with Ankalaev there, but I can see that as a possibility, which is why I feel like he's about to absolutely dominate Gilbert Burns. So good luck to Hermansson, but I don't think that fight will happen anytime soon. Best he'll get is another wrestling match. That's the best Hermansson's gonna get. Then you had Shavkat Rachmanav versus Carlston Harris, man. Shavkat made easy work of this dude, knocking him out in the very first round. He's got his spinning heel kicks. He was just perfect with his kicks. I don't think he's missed a spinning kick that he's thrown in the UFC, apparently, I'm stealing that directly from the Weasel. Shout out to the Weasel. But he finished this guy in the first round, man. He made it look easy. I'd like to see him fight Muslim Salikov next. Nice, number 15 at welterweight. And he could, break into that top 15. I say by 2023, we could have Khamzat versus Rachmanov for the belt for the first time. We had Brian Battle versus Trey Gorman. Trey Gore looked like a beast on The Ultimate Fighter, and I thought he was going to win that competition, but he got injured, and I feel like he would have. Brian Battle looked much improved. He looked like a better fighter than who he was at the end when he won The Ultimate Fighter, and he went out there and he just stayed at a distance from Shawn Gore and just kicked him, punched him. He just kicked up his legs. He just kept touching him from a distance. And Gore was just not throwing punches. He was just not throwing punches. But he hurt him. He got to him in the second round and hurt him twice, I felt like. But I don't know. He just wasn't doing enough to actually win the fight. Shawn Gore was just not doing enough. So Bryan Battle wins that fight. Honestly, man, the way Gore looked, if he fights like that again, I don't see him winning in the UFC, just not throwing punches. I don't see him winning like that, but I don't know. I don't really see either of these guys doing too well in the UFC in the immediate future. We'll see. We'll see how their next fights go. But I think Battle did well. And I think he's lucky that it seemed like Gore was very gun shy in the first round. He threw one punch, maybe two punches in the first round. Threw maybe two punches in the first round. So he got lucky that Gore was pretty gun shy. And I don't know, man. You put him up there against some of these killers anytime soon. I don't think Bryan Battle does too well. I mean, I don't know what he looks like. I mean, I have seen him on the ground and tough, but I'm talking about versus real beast out there versus some of these UFC veterans. So I don't know how either of these guys are gonna look in their next fights. Hopefully they get they both fight some new UFC guys who are making their debut, and not making their debuts from some big promotion. I'm talking about Dana White's Contender Series guys. They need to fight some Dana White's Contender Series guys. That's what's next for those guys. Or I don't see a long career for them. They need more time to develop, man. I don't know if the Ultimate Fighter makes sense right now. Especially if you're not introducing a new weight class. It makes no sense that you're just trying to find some young fighters or some shit to get thrown in here with these fucking beast who've been so Bryan Battle is at 185. Shawn Gore, they just fought at 185. How do you think either of those guys does against Israel Adesanya, against Robert Whittaker, who we're going to talk about here next? I think they do very poorly. I think they're finished in the first round, the both of them. So at this point, that was Shawn Gore's fifth professional fight. I'm not sure how many fights Bryan Battle had. I just don't know if it makes sense right now at where... I know it made sense 20 years ago to do the Ultimate Fighter. It made sense 20 years ago, 27 years ago, or whenever it started. It made sense then because the sport was new. The sport's about 30 years old. The sport was new. So it made sense then. You didn't have these fighters. But now that you have, such a huge roster of top-level fighters from around the world, from all these promotions, all these top fighters are here. Now you're going to get some kid, Shawn Gore, with fucking 4 fights in here to fight with these fucking animals. And he's gun-shy against Bryan Battle. I don't know how these guys are going to do. I don't know if the fucking Ultimate Fighter makes any sense. Unless you're bringing in a new weight class. Because that's the best way for us to get to know the next crop of possible fighters in the company. Because, somebody's going to win that tournament and whatever comes with that. And you're obviously going to sign some of these other people there. Maybe even some fan favorites you bring in for the new division. But, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. So next week we have UFC 271, headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 2 for the belt, ladies and gentlemen. And, I was watching the countdown the other day, and I was getting hype. I was like, ooh, Robert stepped up his striking. And I was getting real hype about that. And then I was just, right before I started recording this, Israel Adesanya put up a interview where his brother's interviewing him. And, just in the interview, he was saying about Robert's improvements. What does he think about Robert's latest wins since they've last fought? And he was like, he doesn't really see too much of an improvement. He was like, what do you think he did? Reinvent the jab? He was like, no. He's like, yeah, he stepped up his boxing a little bit, but he was like, but maybe everybody else just has low standards. He was like, I have high standards. And he's like, I'm not impressed by your performance. So, damn, I was like, fuck. He's about to go in there and whoop this nigga's ass again. That's why even after the fight, Whitaker would win I think after he won his first fight against Darren Till, they were like, oh, do you want to fight Israel next? He was like, I don't know. It's a tough fight. He was not committed to saying he wanted to fight Israel for 2 years until he was finally like, yeah, I'll fight Israel. I'm ready. But I'm telling you, for years, he was just like, I don't know. I don't know if I need that fight right now. He was not trying to fight Adesanya. So here we are with part 2. And I'm thinking that Whitaker he's going to try to grapple naturally. And he's going to try to be a little more patient than he was in the first fight. But I think I'm obviously going to stick with the last style bender to win this. Probably my favorite fighter at this moment. I'm rocking with Israel. He's put on a lot of muscle by the looks of it. I was looking at the videos from the first fight. It's like, dude, he's a lot bigger than he was back in those days. I just see him being too much for Robert Whitaker again. He was too much for Robert Whitaker in the first fight, and I feel like he'll be too much for Robert Whitaker. I think he'll be better this time against Robert Whitaker than he was, but I think Robert Whitaker will be a better Robert Whitaker, but at the same time, Israel will just be too fucking much for Robert Whitaker at the end of the day. Then we got Derrick Lewis versus Ty Tuivasa, and my prediction is that either one of them would get eaten the fuck up by Ciryl Gane, Stipe Miocic, Francis Ngannou, and even John Jones. So, does it really matter who wins this fight? I don't think so. You got Jarrett Cannoneer versus Derek Brunson, man. That's going to be a fucking bang-up, potentially. This is how I honestly think the best strategy for Brunson, obviously, I feel like Cannoneer has sophisticated striking, his leg kicks, he's powerful as fuck. So Brunson is obviously going to look to take this to the ground. Wrestling is his strong point here. He's going to want to get this man to the ground and try to, just grapple him. Not even necessarily get him to the ground, get him up against that fence. You just want to grapple with Cannoneer, make him fucking carry your weight, make him just tire out so he slows down. And that is going to be the path to victory for Derek Brunson. And I think he will be successful in those efforts. I'm going to go with Derek Brunson to win this fight. And I feel like if he gets a win here, he's right there. I think he will be the person to get the next title shot. That's what I believe. You got my boy Bobby Green versus Nazred Hack Perez. That's another fight I'm interested in. UFC 271, because I fucking love Bobby Green. All right, I think he's a dope ass fighter. I think he has the skills to just beat Nazred Hack Perez. I think he's just a better fighter. I think he's very underrated. I think he gets terrible shakes from the judges. I felt like he beat Rafael Fiziev I feel like he should be fighting RDA in 2 weeks. Yeah. I feel like he's a lot better than what these judges be doing to my nigga Bobby Green. So I'm rolling with Bobby Green against Nazred Hack Perez. Alright? Rolling with my boy Bobby Green with that Philly shell. Rolling with my boy Bobby. If you guys would like to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon5Pod. You can follow my personal accounts at My Name is Jermaine. You can email this podcast at Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. You can listen to this podcast everywhere. Hit that like button if you are. If you made it this far, hit that like button. I appreciate it so much. If you guys are on Twitch, go ahead and follow me at twitch.tv/Babylon5. If you guys are on if you guys want to buy some merchandise, go to teespring.com/stores/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5pod. Yeah. This has been a fun episode. Episode 129. I mean, it's kind of fun. Talking about fucking monsters in Hollywood, motherfuckers like Bill Cosby. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he's an absolute monster. I mean, I can't say for sure that he committed all those crimes. I mean, like every single one of those stories is true, you know what I'm saying? I can't say for a fact. But they were definitely saying there's like countless more women that they spoke to, that they learned about, that they saw what happened to the women who did come forward, and they didn't want that to happen to them. So there's a lot more women out there with stories. He's just undoubtedly one of the most disgusting individuals out there, man. He was just openly talking about it, and I guess it was a different time back then. You know what I'm saying? Even in the deposition. In the deposition, he was talking about how he was getting quaaludes for women to have sex with these women. And that's ultimately how he got convicted, is that he admitted to this when he was talking to the district attorney, but they agreed to have it sealed, and then the new district attorney was like, nah, we unsealing it. And then all that shit came out where he was like, yeah, I'm drugging women. It says on the thing that he was fucking getting quaaludes. I'm sitting there like, how did this nigga getting quaaludes? It's not. I just listened to Wolf of Wall Street when they said they ain't around no more, so I was like, okay. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know what they were until I had never heard of a quaalude until I saw Wolf of Wall Street. And they were like, oh, they don't exist anymore. And I was like, oh, well, that's the story unknown. That's something that people used to do back in the day. That's all I've ever thought of it. But yeah, Cosby admits in this thing that he was getting that shit. So it's, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that he's a fucking scumbag. So I had fun in this episode regardless that we're talking about monsters. But this is episode 129, Monster. So I guess we had no choice. But thank you guys so much for being here. Episode 129, Monster. It's your boy Jermaine and Vince. Hope you guys are taking care of yourselves and each other. And I'll see you when I see you. I'll holler.
Like I'm the best. Just ain't even gotta flex. Now I'm all up in my bag. Flowing to secure the bag. I feel like I'm the fucking greatest. You gonna know my name, guy. Problem size is the nigga with the same eye. Word up, stop the presses, I'm a nightmare. Bird up, they can't see me when I'm right there. Fight fair, but history's the winner's job. I'm pulling up with the squad, nigga, fuck the odds. I don't do favors, shining light on you haters. I'm Walter White, trying to teach you how to use the table. Never mind, hit recline, take a seat. You niggas talk shit, but I'd rather hit a beat.